We've had some very large deals recently, really large, but missing is the volume. It's interesting, Dunnigan, because all we continue to hear is strains within the LBMA and the Comex. Huge deliveries, 46 million ounces delivered of silver off of Comex in December. Huge deliveries off the LBMA and all of the exchanges around the globe. The central banks doubling down their 12-month moving average the last 2 months of 2024. And at the same time, I would say that the retail demand is eerily quiet. Premiums on gold and silver coins that were parabolic during the pandemic have fallen to levels I've never seen before. Much like a pendulum shifts from one side too high to the other side too low, that's where we are right now. The biggest, most sophisticated, well-informed money on the planet is doubling down their acquisition of gold. And the people in this country, largely, if I had to, I don't know, kind of just paint a narrative, it would be that they are swept up in the euphoria after 4 years of living in a world that no one really recognized. And I understand it from a basic level. I get it. But I think it's a big mistake, and it's setting people up in disaster. I mean, we can just simply say there are three groups right now, three pools where the majority of the money is. One, money markets, over $7 trillion, which typically is associated with a recession, on top of all of the recession triggers that we've seen, the Somme rule and the uninversion of the yield curve and all of these things. Number two, 7 stocks, the Russell 2000 and the Wilshire 5000, which is a much better picture, snapshot of the United States economy. The majority of those are underwater. 7 stocks holding the whole thing up. That's where the majority of the money is. And then in cryptocurrencies. And the cryptocurrency market, in particular, Bitcoin, has been so financialized. Thinking again in terms of a rug pull. One big bank falls, one big bank, like a Bank of America. You keep hearing rumors of it. A bank bail-in. Things get very real, very, very fast, as it would sweep up in one swoop a good portion of all three of these markets: the crypto market, the 7 stocks, and this money market phase where even though they changed gating legislation, they can now impose serious fines, if you will, or costs for making them really uneconomical to leave the money market if people start to do that. It's the same thing as gating, only you can leave, but at a very high price. So I'm not, again, trying to walk the line of conspiracy and reality, but when you talk about how bad this could get very quickly, it's very fragile. And I think that's the one thing people are missing. It's very, very fragile right now. And I think the stage is set for something to happen that would very quickly wake up the entire country, which would very quickly reignite the demand for physical precious metals, like we saw last March and April when the banks failed, Silicon and Signature, where we added 14,000 clients in 45 days. That's 4 years worth of client acquisition. And those banks were illegally bailed out. Remember what happened in Lindsay, Oklahoma in October, the first bank bail-in. Was that a test flare, if you will? Was that a trial balloon for a bigger, more significant bank failure, which would usher in what? I guess that remains to be seen. But yeah, I think that the people are missing entirely. It's funny because at the same time, all of the people are missing, the most well-informed traders in the world are doubling down. This is the one thing that I think kind of slaps me in the face. And I'll be one of the only people saying this over and over. But yeah, but you own a gold company. I don't care. I mean, the truth of it is, that is what's happening. Biggest money in the world doubling down on gold, not on cryptocurrency, not on money markets, and not on the Magnificent Seven. At the same time, that's exactly where the people in this country are, thinking that rates could never go higher, things can never get worse, we can never see a bank or insurance company failure until we do. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would add that I wouldn't I don't have to add anything about demand for bullion, but it feels like the sentiment for gold and silver is still low, really low, despite the fact that we had a great year last year. Gold was up like 27%, silver about 21%. And
that's not high enough anymore in this instant gratification.
I've noticed that, like in China, though, the public is the demand for gold and silver is huge. So I also feel that they're a bit more savvy about what's going on, and even the Chinese government, the communist government, is encouraging its people to buy gold. And so I think when the stock market turns, especially the NASDAQ, and I think they will turn, and also cryptos, we could see people ask themselves, where could we go? And they're going to look at gold and silver and the miners as well, and see how undervalued they are. So yeah, in a way, I think that's, we're still, there's no exuberance in the precious metals market yet.
I wanted to tap both of you guys as well, and maybe I'll start with Mario on Andy, you were just using the word fragile to talk about the economic system. I wanted to ask you about the instability culturally across the globe with uncontrolled immigration. We've followed at least about a decade of for almost uncontrolled immigration that has been mysterious to many people, watching culture after culture after culture, where the people that grew up there, their ancestors grew up there and everything, saying, I can hardly recognize my country anymore. Who is pushing this and what is going on? And yet we have in Europe and many different countries there, as well as in the US, more people speaking out and saying, we want our country back. And Mario, I guess if you could comment from the European side of that, how you see this do you see this as a potentially destabilizing force, just as we've talked about economically, culturally, and do you see any potential financial or economic impacts of that? We've heard that Germany is the engine that's still pulling along the Eurozone, et cetera. But can you talk to us about what you're seeing in Europe related to cultural impacts and potentially financial impacts of the legacy of runaway immigration that we've been observing?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just in Europe, like you said, it's also in the US, the whole Western world. And I think it's by design, by the same people who are behind like the climate agenda. And I think the reason they're doing it, and I say this being like born in Brazil and having studied here in the States and living in the UK. I've moved around, but the kind of immigration they've had, and especially in the last few years, allowing illegals to come in and financing them, it's just the resentment is starting to grow against these people, and I can understand why they want to come to Europe or the US, because their countries have been also destabilized, it all seems to be culminating. I've always spoken about the symptoms of a dying currency. It's not just economic, but also culturally and societal. And I think the people behind this, like let's say the Open Society, George Soros and others, their goal is to destroy nations so that they can have like a one world system, which is easier to control. But there's a lot of backlash now. And we saw in Romania recently, they had elections there, and this candidate who wanted to reverse these policies, he won, and they canceled the election. And now we're going to have elections in Germany, I think February 23rd. And I think Breton, he's like a French politician who was a commissioner in the EU. He said, if the AfD, alternative for Germany, if they win, we're going to cancel that election. I mean, it's
How do they even say that?
I know. It's just pretty outlandish. So, yeah. And the other thing, and then again, it's the old concept of divide and rule. So if we all like at each other's neck with illegal immigrants, and we're feeling that our culture is being destroyed, people will get angry and they might rise up, and that will give them an excuse to crack down even more. So it's a really difficult situation, and that's why I always tell people that, yes, keep an eye on these things and they will affect you and your family greatly, but try to not let it get you down and try to look after yourself. And that's one of the reasons why I tell people about gold and silver, because it's something that it's not going to protect you in all aspects of life, but financially it will keep you relatively safe. And if you have financial safety, you can try to fight what's going on.
Yeah, if these people in positions of power can actually say something as ludicrous as that, well, if they win, we'll decertify the election. What does that say for the mountain that Trump has to climb? And these people are not just Eurocentric. This is a group that is the whole Western-centric. And that's why I think that 2025 to me will probably be a more eventful year than any of us think. Probably more eventful than things that we saw over the last several years, which no one would have ever thought anything like that could happen. I think that's kind of, to me, the prevailing environment, Dunnigan, is that people are not prepared. They think the worst is behind us. And so, the rain is gone, so they shed their umbrella and their rain jacket, and they don't see what's the possibility of it happening again. And I think that, to me, is the scary part, is that people are now probably doubling down on the risk-on trade and not looking at any potential black swans because Trump is here. And I think that is a fatal flaw, perhaps, of the way people are thinking of things.